Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Issues and Answers, Dreams on Trial. I'm Anthony Moreno. In 2012, former President Barack Obama established the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program as a response to what he said was the failure of Congress to pass a DREAM Act for certain immigrants without legal status who arrived to the U.S. as children. Just over 2 years ago, President Donald Trump rescinded DACA due to a federal court injunction. Those in the program can renew, but those who were not in the program at the time when it was rescinded are not currently eligible for DACA. The Supreme Court has taken up the case on if the Trump administration's actions to end DACA 2 years ago was legal. During this program, we will hear the personal stories of students and professionals in the DACA program to gain a greater perspective on how the program has made a difference in their lives and what's at stake. We start off with the story of 2 NMSU students currently in the DACA program.
Uriel Rosales and Manuel Salazar are 2 college students with one dream. Their dream is to continue to have legal status in the U.S. after graduation so they can pursue their careers in electrical engineering. Thanks to the DACA program, both students currently have legal status, but with the Supreme Court considering the future of the program, these students and the lives of hundreds of thousands are in limbo.
To be honest, I don't know what I will be doing a year from now. My future basically depends on that decision.
That's why in his free time, Uriel Rosales works for the New Mexico Dream Team. As an organizer for Southern New Mexico and president of the NMSU chapter, he leads information sessions for students whose futures may also depend on the DACA program.
What we're trying to do is educate the youth to become leaders of our communities and to help others, their families, friends. So that's the work that we're trying to do, educate our own people. And of course there's hope. We know there's a lot of work to do. We know there's a lot of bumps that we have to go through. One of them is this decision about DACA. But of course, we won't stop working hard and trying to get a change in this country.
Like many DACA recipients, Rosales arrived in the U.S. as a child. His single mother brought him to the U.S. along with his siblings, and they settled in southern New Mexico when he was 8. First, Rosales says he overcame the language barrier and cultural differences here in the United States. Later, while in high school, Rosales sought help from counselors about the prospect of going to college. But he says they were not prepared to help a student who was undocumented. That's when he learned about the DACA program. After a 6-month process and nearly $500, he was admitted during his first year of college. Rosales says having legal status made it possible for him to get a part-time job at a grocery store.
We have always been struggling in the economic part in our family, in my family. So I always try not to ask my mom for money for my books, for my school, for my gas, because I had to work all the summer also on the fields to buy my car.
Manuel Salazar is a classmate and roommate of Rosales. He graduates from college this semester. He's lived in southern New Mexico since he was 10, and like many others, his parents moved their family to the United States looking for a better future after the economy took a bad turn in Chihuahua, Mexico, where they were living.
I knew right from the start that we were not going to have any documents to be up here, that we were going to struggle. I knew that right from the start. And that was something that actually gave us that strength to keep on going.
Salazar also overcame the language barrier as a kid, but he says he didn't have any plans to go to college because he didn't know if he could go due to not having legal status in the United States.
I was not informed about the possibilities that I could have as an undocumented student. I didn't have the resources. The teachers were not there to help us out in a way that, they did not provide us enough information to know what we needed to do so we could go to college.
Salazar says his parents were able to get enough money together to send him and his brother to community college.
While we were there, we applied for scholarships and financial aid. Unluckily, as an undocumented student, we're not able to get a financial aid.
While studying in community college, he found the DACA program. Once admitted to the program, he could finally work while pursuing a degree.
Without any documents, I could be, pulled over on the streets and I could be deported just for the fact that I am undocumented or that I was just, going to school, just for that fact.
With the future of DACA in limbo, Salazar says his future in southern New Mexico is on the line as well.
So this is my home. If I get deported, pretty much the way that I think about this is that I would have to start from zero. Because I've been here for most of half of my life.
That's also why Uriel Rosales says he keeps working to educate others on DACA, because like Salazar and thousands of others, their future in the United States depends on it.
All the work that we have been doing throughout these years, me graduating high school, me trying to pay for my books, and come to college. All the work that I have been doing that could have no meaning if DACA is terminated.
As the Supreme Court considers the future of the DACA program, the futures of Rosales, Salazar, and hundreds of thousands of dreamers remain uncertain. According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services data, as of 2019, there were over 660,000 active DACA recipients, well over 500,000 people who have their American dreams on trial.
As you heard, hundreds of thousands of people are waiting for what the future will be with the DACA program. Let's take a moment to take a look at some statistics. According to Pew Research data from 2017, around 800,000 people have received work permits and protection from deportation since the DACA program was established in 2012. 2/3 of DACA recipients are 25 and under, 53% of recipients are female, and no DACA recipients are over the age of 38 due to applicants having to be under the age of 31 when the program began. We are now joined by 2 students and 1 professional, all currently in the DACA program. Please welcome Uriel Rosales, Silvia Aguirre-Jaquez, both NMSU students, and Samuel Bejarano, an accountant working in our area. Thank you all for being here so much.
Thank you for having us.
Now I'd like to begin with what your life was like before DACA. Uriel, we're able to find out a little bit about you. I'll start with kind of maybe some things that we didn't cover in that story about your life before DACA.
Yeah, obviously, I was really afraid. There's no way to deny that. There's a lot of afraid of me being deported and going back to a country that it's my home country. I was born there, but I wouldn't know what to do, how to live over there, the resources I would have over there, and so yeah, it was really hard on me to think of that. As a kid, like you're a teenager, you don't know how to deal sometimes with those feelings. So it was really hard for me before having DACA.
And you were from southern New Mexico, raised in southern New Mexico here before DACA, in an area where you're kind of confined due to checkpoints in the area.
Yeah, there's checkpoints in a radius of 100 miles, so there's no way you can go outside of that radius. You're trapped between your home country and the rest of the United States. So yeah, for around 5 to 7 years, I was trapped here. Before DACA, I I wasn't able to go outside of this area. I wasn't able to travel, to meet new people, and I was just trapped here. I felt like I was in a cage. It was basically that.
Wow.
And by having DACA, I felt like I was more free again, but still I always have in my mind that DACA is not everything, and the fact that I have to renew every 2 years, and that it also depends on the amount of money that I can afford to apply again, and also now the termination of DACA that's affecting again.
Yeah, you bring up the cost of it. I definitely want to talk about that in a minute, but I want to move on to Silvia. I'm so glad you could join us because you were raised in the northern part of New Mexico, so you have a perspective of what it was like from the northern part of the state. You're currently a student at New Mexico State University in the DACA program. I'd like to hear a little bit about your life before DACA. What was it like? What were the challenges?
So I'm from Español, up there, super nice. Unlike Uriel, I didn't feel trapped because, I mean, you can travel to other parts of the U.S. You're not trapped within 100 miles of the border and like the checkpoints and everything. So growing up, I always knew that I wasn't documented. My parents, since I was little, they told me, they never lied to me, so I was aware. But I don't think, since I was in high school, like, you don't need a social security number or something to go to school. So I was okay. I got it when I was 16. After that, I didn't really start feeling the effects of having DACA until I graduated, because that's when you have to start applying to colleges and scholarships and saying that you don't qualify for certain things because you're not a US citizen. So before that time, I was a child. I didn't have to really consider, like, have to think ahead, you know what I mean?
So the real challenges came after high school?
Yes.
So what were some of the things you mentioned applying to schools?
Mm-hmm.
Did you specifically have to look for what schools were going to be able to offer you the right tuition amount, cost became a big deal, things like that?
So I think I got lucky because New Mexico is a really great state, and I know that in other states, if you're a DACA recipient, you have to pay out-of-state tuition. New Mexico, you're able to pay in-state tuition. Before I came here, I graduated from a branch campus of UNM. So when I was applying, I'm the first in my family to go to school. So I didn't know how to navigate FAFSA. That's hard enough, and it's like so much harder when you have DACA because you don't qualify for it. So I had to navigate how to do a paper FAFSA, which I didn't know, and nobody could help me with, my school counselors, because they didn't know how. But you get the hang of it after a while. But I think those were some of the biggest challenges, just applying for scholarships, realizing that you don't qualify for them, just trying to figure out how to pay for school.
So what are you studying here in school?
Social work.
Social work,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Samuel, I'd like to hear a little bit about your story. You work here as an accountant in the area. Before DACA, what was your life like?
Before DACA, my life was, like Uriel said, it was being afraid. It was like living on a fight or flight mode all the time. One day you could be with your family, the next day you never know, you could be deported or detained by a cop and questioned about your documents. So growing up because I've been in Las Cruces for about 13 years when my family moved over here. And it feels like a cage, I would say. Like you said, there's checkpoints. Growing up, I would see my friends going on vacations to California, Florida. And I mean, I would stay behind. They would invite me, and you could feel like, okay. Well, I knew I was undocumented, so I would just tell them, you know what, I can't go. It's too expensive, or we have other plans. And it was rough. It's especially since my mom was she worked all the time, so she took care of all of us, basically. And, I would never ask for her to provide for that trip or anything else, since we needed more stuff like basic necessities, clothes, food, and I understood that when I was growing up.
Was it easy to talk about not having legal status in the U.S. growing up? As you know, as a teenager, there's so many challenges.
Correct.
And that being one of them. I mean, was it easy to talk about it with your friends?
It's never easy, no. I mean, some people understand how we're in the border, and there's some people that aren't documented, but most of the time you would just rather not say anything because you would probably maybe endanger your own family, your mother, your brother, your sisters, well, my sisters and my brother. And I would just, stay quiet. I would never speak about my status.
Uriel, you talked to me about what you had to do to really purchase your first car and the work you had to do before DACA. Like during the summer, as Samuel mentioned, many kids go off to summer vacations or camp. You went to work in the fields, and what was that experience like as a young person? Is that something that you did for a while? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I was a child, when I got here, obviously I was in school all the time. So the only time I got to work on the fields was on my vacations, maybe during the summer and the winter, picking up pecans or on the onion. So yeah, it was kind of difficult for me as a child to understand that it was normal for me to be working out there with also my family, because I also saw other children. No? I saw other families working out there, and I saw it as normal, right? Because we needed money, we needed a source of support, and because the American dream, right? You have to work hard. That's the idea, work hard. So yeah, working on the fields was basically working for my family, trying to make myself independent from them on the way that I could buy myself things that are sometimes more than just needed. If I needed a new pair of shoes, I didn't went to my mom. She always worked two jobs. I knew the hard time that she was having, and she's still working 2 jobs right now. So I'm trying. When I was a kid, I used to think that I needed to be independent, but as a kid, now I understand that wasn't okay. It's never okay for children to always think that you have to do more to act as an adult when you're not.
That seems like a great challenge to go through as a child, as a teenager. What would your advice be to those who are in similar positions that you were in as a child, as a teenager?
Obviously, if they have problems in the economic way that we're talking about, there's no, I can tell them that they don't have to work, because that's that's the only way we can achieve things for us immigrants that come to this country. So tips that I would have told them is that to try to live and accommodate their lives as normal as possible, and always accept that they are not being treated equally. Because sometimes, because we came at this country undocumented, we think that it's our fault, that we suffer here because of our fault. We're all humans, who there's no, it's not normal for humans to be treated or feel this way, because we're all the same, no? So that's something I would tell them.
We just have a little short time, but would either of you two like to add on to that really quick?
Yes, I would like to say to people out there, dreamers, that and undocumented people as well, that if they need help, there's plenty of resources out there. There's plenty of help. They're not alone at all. When I started working before DACA, there's my employer. He helped me out. He knew I was undocumented, but he understood my position, that I needed to get money, provide for my family, help out my mom, my brothers, my sisters. So I tell them, don't be afraid to speak up. Just you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta.
Yeah, a position thousands are in right now in the United States. We need to move on to another issue. Many DACA recipients may be part of families that have mixed legal status. We now bring you the story of two sisters who only shared their first names with us. Both have completed higher education programs, but only one has had the opportunity to receive DACA due to the program being rescinded. Here's a story on how DACA has made a difference in their lives.
During the day, Brenda works at a Las Cruces bank. At night, she works a second job doing logistics and HR work for a nonprofit community organizing group. Until being accepted into the DACA program in 2014, Brenda lived without legal status. The program allows her to work legally, and she says that's been life-changing.
So when DACA came along, I was 19 years old, and so that's when I was able to get my first job. I was a waitress at a restaurant, and I was able to help my mom. She was a single mother of 3, so I was very happy that I was able to help her financially. I continued on with my education. I was able to, at one point, have 2 jobs and be a full-time student at NMSU.
Brenda graduated college with honors. With her business degree and DACA, she was able to land a full-time job and help out her family in a way that she says wouldn't have been possible without legal status.
Basically, DACA opened so many doors for me. I was able to get, like I said, my job. I was able to graduate college. I was able to buy a car. The most exciting thing that I was able to do and that I feel very proud of is get my family a new home, which without my DACA, I wouldn't have been able to apply for a home loan or anything. So that opened that opportunity.
Many dreamers like Brenda who are eligible for DACA in New Mexico took advantage of the opportunity. The Center of Migration Policy Institute estimated that in 2018, 76% of those in the state who are eligible participated in DACA compared to 54% nationwide. Brenda says having protected status with DACA has allowed her to accomplish many things, and her achievements have helped change the way she thinks about her goals in life.
As an undocumented person, it's kind of like in your DNA that you won't be able to have certain things in life here in the US. So being able to break that mentality and change that, it's a really amazing feeling.
That mindset and experience is what Brenda shares with her younger siblings.
I think I was fortunate enough to be able to set an example for them, kind of like to draw the little path for them to try to follow.
Brenda's younger sister, Daniela, was not as fortunate. The Trump administration ended DACA, stalling her hopes for the program, but that didn't stop her from pursuing a higher education. Daniela dreams of working in the dental field. After high school, she applied to a dental assistant program at the community college. She shares the joy she had being accepted into the program.
I worked in the fields and with my mom, and I remember I got off work. I was very tired, and I had a missed call from school and that was very strange because I was not expecting a call from the dental assistant program. And I called back, and they told me that I was accepted. And I remember I told to my mom, and she started crying because she was so proud of me. And I was not expecting that. So right away I called my sister and I told her, and I said, I'm gonna be in the dental program.
Daniela graduated from the program, but without legal status, she is unable to work in her profession. She says if she was in the DACA program, things would be different.
If I would have DACA, I think right now I would have been working in a dental office, helping others and just making like a better future for myself, for my family, helping my family.
Family is one reason why Brenda took up a second job with the faith-based community organizing nonprofit NMCafe. She's been affiliated with the group since high school and works to organize and educate the community so they can understand what's at stake for dreamers like her.
My mom, she's like, I graduated college in 2016. Until this day, she says, sometimes you leave work and I can't believe that you're a professional. Like, she says, I never imagined that you would accomplish so many things. And all of those things are because I was able to get a legal status through DACA. So when I say that DACA has changed my life, like 360 degrees, like I really mean it, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to pursue my career like I have. I wouldn't have been able to buy my own car. I wouldn't have been able to buy my family a house. Like, those things are not available to someone that does not, to someone undocumented.
Brenda is one of thousands of New Mexicans who are depending on DACA being available. According to June 2019 data from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, there are approximately 5,880 active DACA recipients in the state. Although Brenda currently has DACA, she can't hide the fear that the program and her legal status could end one day. She says it's a powerless feeling.
Like, you never have peace in your life, and I know people might think, oh, she's exaggerating, but just think about, what if tomorrow you have a job but you can't work anymore, and so you can't provide for your family anymore? Like, how would that change your life? And it's just something that I had to learn how to live with, and that it's just there, and it's a worry that you have every day.
While the Supreme Court weighs the future of the DACA program, the lives of these two sisters and hundreds of thousands of others living in the U.S. will continue to hang in limbo, holding on to a dream.
We just heard how DACA has made an economic impact on Brenda's family and what's at stake for them. Right now, let's pull back the lens to take a look at how removing thousands of DACA workers in our region may affect the economy. According to 2017 data from USC's Dornsife Center for the Study of Immigrant Integration and the Center for American Progress, in the 2nd Congressional District of New Mexico with around 2,800 DACA recipients, it's estimated that removing those workers could lead to having an annual GDP loss of over $163 million. The data also shows that El Paso's congressional district, with around 4,900 DACA recipients, could see an even greater loss at $261 million. Let's now hear more from our panel to hear just how big of a difference DACA has made on their lives and their family. Samuel, I'd like to start with you. You're an accountant, you work with numbers, and so you kind of had a good understanding of just the economic impact. If you could share just really how it's made a difference for you and your family.
For me, it's made a huge difference. I mean, once I graduated from college, I was able to apply for jobs that were a little bit more well paid. I was able to I actually bought my second car after that, because I had bought a new car, well, a small car when I was working before DACA. And it it's just an amazing feeling to be part of the workforce. It's contributing, we pay our taxes, we put into the economy. I actually bought my mom her first mobile home. We've never done anything, so that was a great feeling for her and for us.
Well,
so,
I mean, you mentioned that's amazing. I mean, we've heard a similar story from Brenda that she shared that she was able to buy a home, and I'm kind of curious, when you think about the opportunities that DACA has provided you and other recipients, that power, I mean, to be a part of the American dream of buying a home and still have things in limbo, how does that make you feel?
It makes you feel like you would just out of a sudden just lose everything that you worked hard for. We're here in the United States trying to follow the American dream, trying to make our lives better, trying to help our families. I have my girlfriend and my daughter. I have a 1-year-old and 4-month daughter. So it's really hard to think that you might lose all that. You might just all of a sudden have to stop working, can't provide to your family. So it's a hard feeling.
Silvia, the difference that having DACA made for you, being able to work and being able to, while you go to school, things like that, what can you share with us how it's made a difference?
So first of all, it's allowed me to come to New Mexico State. I'm able to go back home, and I don't have to, as of right now, I don't have to worry about not being able to go back home. And also for the first 2 years that I was in college, I was able to work legally. And one of my jobs, the hardest and the most rewarding, I was an educational assistant with special ed. And if I didn't have DACA, I wouldn't have been able to work with those kids. And I don't know, it's one of the, when I think back, I think it's been one of the best things that have happened because of DACA for me.
Can you share a little bit about your experience and how it's impacted your family?
Having DACA? I think I have been able to lift the burden of paying for school for the most part for my parents. Like I mentioned, college is expensive. So for the first 2 years, I worked, I paid for my school, my books, everything, just because, I have a little sister. They need to take care of her. They need to take care of their own things. So I think it's being able to, like they had mentioned, like be a little bit more independent, not having to rely completely on my parents, especially for school, just because it means so much to me, but sometimes it's too expensive sometimes. And just paying for school has been the best.
Uriel, I'd like to hear from you a little bit about an issue that was brought up earlier, and that's something that many DACA recipients or folks eligible for DACA may have a challenge facing, and that is coming up with the money just for the fees in order to get DACA.
Yeah, $500 doesn't sound like much, but when you are undocumented, when you have to get stuck with the minimum wage all the time, it's hard to get that money, right? Also, like they have said, our families have or tend to support the whole family, right? We only have most of the time only one income. So yeah, for them to save that money, for parents to save that money, it's hard because it's not only the almost $500 that you have to give to the ISCIS, but also when you have to pay the person who's applying for you, right?
Legal
so
fees.
Yeah, the legal fees plus the office fees. So yeah, it's hard on the way that sometimes I've heard of stories that people were not able to apply for DACA because they just didn't have the money, but also there was not that information out there that there was also organizations helping to pay for the fees. So yeah, it's obviously a hard part of the amount of money that we have to pay.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions you think are out there about DACA? I know with the Supreme Court taking up the case, we've seen politicians tweet out things about DACA recipients, which may offer some misinformation in regards to, not being good people, which in reality, in order to get DACA, you have to have a very clean record.
Yeah, of course, like one of the things that the president has been saying a lot is that we're criminals, right? But we're not. Like you have to go to a background check in order to be eligible to have DACA. Also, you have to be in school. Also, DACA does not grant a status like a residency or a citizenship. DACA is just a work permit, and it also grants you the opportunity to stay here on that time that your DACA is not expired, right? So that's like everything that's everything what DACA is. Basically, we also have the opportunity, like we have seen on the video of Brenda, that she was able to buy a home and a car. So that also gives us the opportunity to have that. But on the other hand, we don't get financial aid. We don't get any help from the government at all. So we have to support ourselves just by our work permit and a few opportunities that it has allowed us to succeed, right?
Well, obviously we mentioned, filling out the paperwork, the fees. You also have to give a lot of information to the federal government in order to get into the program, be considered for the program. What are some of those things that people might not realize that you have to do in regards to offering up information?
There's a lot of information about ourselves that the government has about us. So let's say that gets terminated, like that information is gonna be there. We will always have that fear that they might use it against us, that they have our addresses, they have everything about us. So if they just want to deport us, they can do it. They have like all of our information. So it's we know it, but in order to have that opportunity of DACA, we had to do it. So it was.
What was that feeling like before applying? Did you have some concerns about doing all that, offering all that information? Do you have to give fingerprints as well and things like that?
Yeah, we're in the system. Like they keep tabs on us. Every time we go apply, we have to tell them, this is what I've been doing for the past 2 years on DACA. Like, help me out again. Like this last time that I renewed it, I had to take transcripts, forms from the jobs that I was working. They do keep tabs on you.
Samuel?
Well, I've had a different experience because I've renewed mine by myself the last 2 times. So it's the same process. You do get your fingerprints done. You have to send a couple passport pictures along with your application with the $495 fee, which it's not a lot like Uriel says, but it makes an impact when you're trying to pay other bills and things. But like I said, I renewed it a couple times and it's been a little easier to renew.
You have this opportunity with DACA to get an education. As students, I kind of want to ask you both. You have the opportunity to graduate and then go to work should the program be around. I'd like to hear a little bit about when you're going to graduate. Do you have concerns about that conflicting with the program and you still being in the DACA program after graduation?
Being on the program of DACA, like all my plans are based on DACA right now. So with DACA, all my plans are the same that I have thought about that. I will be able to work. I will be able to work on the field that I graduated for, right? Without it, although there's no way I can get hired by one of those companies that I would like to work for. and not also may not work on the field that I would like to, right? Also, I would like to add about that there's also a way that you can work as an undocumented person, which is by being an independent contractor. So that's also a thing that I think I would look for a job that would contract people as contractors and not as an employee. But of course, that's gonna be also hard because not all the companies are gonna be willing to hire you that way. So yeah, that's my point of view on those two perspectives.
Okay, now I want to move on to another part of our forum, and that is an opportunity for audience members to ask questions. We have a question from an audience member. Could you introduce yourself and feel free to ask a question?
Okay, I'm Gabriela Avila. I'm currently a social work student at NMSU, and I'm currently interning with New Mexico Cafe. My question is, our immigrants are not immune to mental health issues. Research indicates our broken immigration system often aggravates these issues. How should our government respond to these needs?
And that's a question for all of you. How do you feel that the government should respond to the issue? I mean, you shared a little bit about what life was like before DACA and the struggles. Over my reporting, I've heard numerous stories of the frustration of growing up. Could you share a little bit about what you think the government could do or what it's perhaps not doing?
Of course, like he mentioned before, we pay taxes. Every single year we pay taxes. There's no way around that. And since we pay taxes, I feel that it's not fair for us not to have access to healthcare, or like to, for example, Medicaid, and if we go to a hospital, there's always that fear. Personally, I can say that I have fear maybe to get injured, maybe to, if I get a cold, I decide not to go to the hospital or to the clinic because I have to pay out of my pocket. And that's very expensive. And we have to pay ourselves. And like we said, it's hard for us to pay that amount of money. And in the cases that we have to, an emergency or something, we go and like we have a debt that we have to be paying for years.
Anybody else like to add on that?
I'd like to add something. When we're undocumented or we have DACA, like you said, we don't have access to healthcare, and it really is a, what do you say? It really makes it hard for you to, like you said, have access to healthcare, hospitals, and it's I forgot the word. It's hard to. You can't afford it. It's unaffordable to get sick, to try to, like Gabriela asked, have mental health, which takes a toll on us because we're constantly, like I said, in a fight or flight mode. We're always trying to, either we're here or we might be over there. So it takes a big toll on us too.
And in the earlier story, Brenda shared that it's sort of in your DNA that you're not going to have certain things. With that kind of mentality being out there, I mean, how does that affect really your mental health and well-being as you go around? And with DACA, has there been any kind of like some breakthroughs or with that feeling?
Yeah, I think for me, it's very frustrating because you can try and be the best student you can be, but if they take away DACA, like you have all this knowledge that you can't use, you have maybe experience that you can't go find a job. So I think it does affect us being in limbo, not knowing what's going on or what's gonna happen. It's very frustrating, and if things don't work out how you want them, it's very disappointing and very heartbreaking. So definitely, like, it affects.
Okay, now we're going to move on now to another question from audience member. Could you please introduce yourself and feel free to ask your question?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Silvia Dorado. I work for Border Servant Corps here in Las Cruces, and we mostly focus on refugees and the MPP program that's happening now. But one of the focuses for the new year, 2020, is going to be DACA recipients. And most importantly, because we run a border immersion program, which brings students from all over the country, as far away from Boston, Florida. We even have groups from Canada coming down, and they want to immerse themselves in the border issues. And we've always left out DACA students. And one of the main reasons is because of the fear of coming out and speaking to groups. If these groups that come down, these students are mostly in faith-based colleges, so they don't experience very many DACA students on their campuses or from small campuses. But what are some of the big misconceptions about life on campus that's different for you all, whether it's money issues or, you have all these things to worry about? I heard you guys talking about having to reapply every 2 years, and I heard that that's a long process. How does that affect studying time and the ability to get work study? Like, what are some of the issues that other students in other parts of the country might not understand, and they might not get why it's even harder for you all to be in college or to be working, because you all still are having to deal with a lot of issues that they might not even know exist. They know, you have to deal with the issue of being trapped here when you're not on DACA, but they don't know all the little things. Is there anything that you could share with them that might help them better understand you as peers? Because they are peers. You're not speaking to, adults that have kind of studied this. These are kids just like you in school and young adults entering the workforce. So what kind of information would you like them to have to better understand the process?
So obviously, we don't have space for error. Some of us afford to go to college because of a scholarship, and that is scholarships. We need to have a certain GPA, certain grades every single semester, a certain amount of credits every semester. So like all the time, all we think is have to reach that GPA. It's not a low GPA, it has to be maybe 3.0, 3.5, depending on their scholarship. So we don't have space for error, because if we do it, like, we lose everything. We're not able to afford go to college, right? And some of the differences is that sometimes I hear people who are not DACA recipients and that do receive financial aid, and I hear that they're failing, or they might lose their financial aid because they might have a 2.6 as a GPA, and like I start thinking, like, I wish I could have that opportunity. I'm not meaning that I don't want to fail, right? But like all the time in my head is like, I can't afford, I can't fail to myself, my family, and college.
Well, a lot of people consider college the opportunity to learn by making mistakes or failing. Whether it's trying to practice a craft or to get through a class. Not having that opportunity and having to keep walking the line narrow, I mean, does that affect you? And does that really kind of take away any of the so-called college experience that you think a lot of folks may be enjoying?
I think it's a lot of pressure. We should always be striving to succeed. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but when you have, so it's you trying to get your degree, trying to keep your scholarships, and then like trying to have a legal status in the country. Like it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress on top of stress.
Would you like to add to that, Samuel?
Yes, I would like to say that, we're just ordinary people, ordinary students, ordinary friends, family. So as a DACA recipient, like she said, we're always trying to put that extra to be extraordinary. We're always trying to, stand out. We're not trying to comply to the rules to be like the rest. We're trying to always, we're trying to be ambitious.
I see. All right, we have another question.
Hello, my name is Perla Aguilar, and I am a student at NMSU and currently chapter leader for NMSU Dream Team. And my question is for all three of the panelists. Your fate is pretty much on the hands of the Supreme Court justices. So what would you want them to know, especially now that they have to determine what's going to happen after they decide the decision this coming year?
Thank you.
So I would like them to know, because like when they see the case, they just see numbers, right? They see the amount of people who have currently have DACA and that it'll affect us, right? But what they don't see is the stories behind that. So I think that what happened on November 12th, it was really important because they got to see a different perspective other than just a paper and deciding on the case that way, right? So I would like them to see that we are people who are working hard, that we have a lot of, like it's basically our lives. They gotta think that we have a lot to lose, like to put ourselves on our position and feel the same thing that, try to feel the same thing that we're feeling, and they'll understand why is it important not to get rid of that.
Silvia?
I think they should consider that a lot of us have been here obviously since we were little kids. I came here when I was 2. The United States is my home. I don't know any other place. I don't know my home country as much as I'd like to go back, but my home is here. I think they should consider that we didn't really, sometimes you don't have a choice. And I'm not putting blame on like parents or anything. I understand them, but I think they should consider like our point of view, like this is where we've been for years and years. So.
Samuel?
I would like to tell, the politics that when they think about the dreamers, they should think not only about us, but our communities, our families. It's not just about us. We're not just like he said, we're not a number. There's a lot of factors that play into place. We have family, we have jobs. For them, they have nothing to lose, right? For us, we have everything to lose.
Mm-hmm. We have another question.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here and for your wisdom and knowledge today. My name is Abrams Sanchez. I'm a former New Mexico State University student, and I work as a community organizer here with New Mexico Cafe in southern New Mexico. For many people who are watching this today, we often aren't aware of many of the difficulties that you face in your communities as a result of our broken immigration system. My question for you all would be, what are some of the best ways that you could encourage people to get involved if they would like to stand with you and make sure that all of your hard work and dignity are honored and that you are able to stay in this country with all of the great talents and gifts that you bring?
Of course, there's organizations out there that are willing to help, and we shouldn't be always walking and facing down, right? So we have to raise our voices. We need to let them know that we are humans, we're people, and that we deserve to be treated with dignity. So yeah, they shouldn't live with fear, although I did it. I now know that that's not okay, that's not healthy, and we all have to accept the fact that we're not treated equally and with dignity. All those things that a lot of politicians, the president, have told us are not okay, and we have to accept it. And the fact that we came here being immigrant and undocumented does not allow them to treat us that way.
Silvia, would you like to add on to that? I know you came to NMSU and wanted to get involved.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think at this point in time, it's necessary to get involved. There's too many things happening, and it's not enough to just sit there and like hope that things change. You have to try. You have to make the change. You can't just hope that other people do it or have the courage. You need to find it in yourself to do it.
Samuel?
Just like my peers said, I would tell people to speak up. Don't ever comply to the status quo. Always try to be out there speaking up. I would tell people that they're not alone. Like I said, there's a lot of help. There's a lot of groups out there. For example, I have a Facebook group where all the DACA people get along and, coexist with each other. They help us out. They keep on top of the news, so they're not alone. Just speak up.
You bring up something, I mean, we just have a short time left, but has DACA enabled folks in situations like all 3 years to really kind of form somewhat of a bond or a support group?
Yes. So having DACA, after having DACA, I felt more comfortable speaking about my status. And obviously there's people who still have DACA and don't feel comfortable doing that, but that allowed us to meet each other, to talk to peers that were on the same situation. And the time that I feel good to say, oh, I'm a DACA recipient, and someone was like, hey, I'm a DACA recipient, and like little by little, we get to know more stories, more people, and we don't feel like we're alone. There's a lot of people there, and that have helped us come out in a way and accept that we are DACA recipients.
Now, there's polls that have been out that have shown overwhelmingly many people supporting you all. I mean, what are some things that folks can do to really show support for the DACA program and Dreamers who may not be in the program?
Stand with us.
Fight with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of allies. Like, it's not only us that we have to fight. There's you say that there's a lot of feminists who are mixed status. So of course, we're not alone. There's a lot of people, and not because you are a U citizen, you're a resident, that doesn't mean that you are not able to help us, because we are a community. We're all the same humans, right? And we all deserve to help each other and hold our hands and like raise our voices together. And like if, for example, today we as DACA recipients need help, maybe tomorrow our allies will need help, we will be there too. Because that's like, we're humans, right?
Well said. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Uriel Rosales, Silvia Aguirre-Jaquez, and Samuel Bejarano. Thank you so much for taking the time to just share your stories and perspectives on our program. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at KRWG for the latest news and programming announcements. And we would love to hear your story ideas and topics for the program and others. You can always email us at feedback@nmsu.edu. Thank you for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Anthony Moreno.